Hello everyone, today we're going to be looking at note values and their equivalent rests, time signatures and bar lines. You should already be familiar with these note values from your probationer training, but we'll just remind ourselves to be absolutely sure we're really confident about how long each note lasts. The first note is a semibreve, which looks like a slightly lopsided circle. It lasts 4 beats. A minim has an empty circle and a line called a stem. It lasts 2 beats, so you can fit 2 minims into a semibreve. A crotchet is made up of a coloured-in note head with a stem and lasts for 1 beat. You can fit 4 crotchets into a semibreve or 2 crotchets into a minim. The final note is a quaver, which has a coloured-in circle, a stem and a curvy tail. Sometimes the tail is called a flag, but they both mean the same thing. Quavers last half a beat and can be joined together in pairs by a straight line called a beam. Now that we've revised note values, let's have a look at their equivalent rests. Rests are silences which last the same length as the note with the same name. For example, a minim lasts 2 beats, so a minim rest also lasts 2 beats. When you see a rest in a piece of music, you need to count its beats and breathe so that you're ready for your next entry. A semibreve rest is a little black rectangle which sits under the 4th line of the stave. It's really easy to confuse a semibreve rest with a minim rest because they look almost identical. This is what a minim rest looks like. It's also a little rectangle, but unlike the semibreve rest, it sits on top of the 3rd line of the stave. One way to remember which is which is to think that a semibreve rest is heavier because it's carrying 4 beats, so it sunk through the line it was sitting on. A minim rest is lighter because it's only got 2 beats, so it sits on the line rather than hanging underneath. When a bar is empty, a semibreve rest is used regardless of the time signature. This means that you can sometimes see a 4-beat rest in a piece of music in 3/4 or 2/4. However, you don't have to count 4 beats. If the maximum number of crotchets you can fit in a bar is 3, then count 3 even if you see a semibreve rest. This is why knowing the time signature is really important. If you see a semibreve rest in any time signature other than 4/4 or 2/2, just think of it as a whole bar rest. The little squiggle is a crotchet rest and lasts 1 beat. If you ever need to draw a crotchet rest, start with a longish Z or a Harry Potter scar and put a little C at the bottom. Finally, the symbol at the end, which looks a little bit like a number 7 with a little blob on the end, is a quaver rest. Rests smaller than a crotchet, like quavers and semiquavers, always have the same number of blobs as tails. A quaver note has got 1 tail, so its rest has got 1 blob. A semibreve note has got 2 tails, so its rest has got 2 blobs. The same thing applies to notes which are beamed together. A quaver has got 1 tail, so 2 joined together will have 1 beam. A semiquaver has got 2 tails, so 2 or more semiquavers joined together will have 2 beams. Give this rhythm a try. The metronome will count you in and then we'll say or clap it twice. Ta ti ti ta, ta i ti ta. Ta ti ti ta, ta i ti ta. The next thing we're going to look at are simple time signatures. They're not called simple because they're easy, even though they are once you know how to work them out. It's to differentiate them from compound time signatures, where the beats per bar are made up of dotted notes rather than normal notes. In simple time signatures, the beats per bar can be subdivided into 2. If you've watched the video on dotted notes, ties and slurs, you'll know that subdividing means dividing the beats per bar into smaller equal note values. If the time signature has 2 crotchet beats per bar, you can subdivide them into 4 quavers or 8 semiquavers. In compound time signatures, the beats per bar can be divided into 3s. So in 6/8, both dotted crotchets can be divided into 2 sets of 3 quavers. But today we're going to focus on simple time signatures. A time signature is made up of 2 numbers. The top number is the most important as it tells you how many beats per bar there are. The bottom number tells you what sort of note values you should count in. so this time signature tells us there are 3 crotchet beats per bar. The bottom note value number is defined by its relationship to a semibreve. If that sounds a bit confusing, we can work it out by looking at how many of each note value can fit into a semibreve. Since a crotchet lasts 1 beat and a semibreve lasts 4 beats, you can fit 4 crotchets into a semibreve. This is why you count in crotchets if the bottom number in a time signature is 4. Similarly, you can fit 2 minims into a semibreve, so if you see 2 at the bottom of a time signature, it means you will be counting in minims. Sometimes you might see a 1 at the bottom of a time signature, which means you should count in semibreves, but you won't come across this number very often. However, if you remember anything about time signatures, make sure it's the top number, because that tells you how many beats per bar there are. Lastly, let's have a look at bars and bar lines. Music is divided up into bar lines, which make it easier to find your place and keep the pulse. A lot of the time when you're singing, your line may stop for a while, but the altos, tenors and basses will keep singing, or the organ will keep playing. Bars and bar lines help you count if you have to wait a little while before your next entry. A bar line is a vertical line on the stave, and a bar is the space between 2 bar lines. If the time signature tells you there are 2 crotchet beats per bar, then that is the exact number of beats you'll find in each bar. You can't fit 3 or 4 crotchets into a bar of 2/4, and if you want to have fewer notes, then you still need to make up the total number of beats with different rests. A lot of the time, hymns don't have time signatures, but you can work out what the time signature is by looking at how many beats there are per bar. Have a look at these 2 examples. What are the time signatures for these 2 hymns?